All right, so I just was watching this little short video. I think it's like 5 minutes long or so, from a YouTuber, young fella, young dark skinned brother, and called like the Black Conservative, and it's a new channel. I never the first video I've ever seen for this guy, but he was recapping the interview with Viktor Bout. Viktor Bout, the quote unquote merchant of death, the one who was just involved in the 1-for-1 prisoner swap with Brittany Griner. Now, the interesting thing is that in Viktor Bout's interview, he is being questioned. He gave his personal thoughts into the Russian person who was interviewing a woman. He gave his personal thoughts about the United States of America, saying that he met a lot of Americans, obviously because he was in American prison. He met a lot of Americans that were intrigued about Russia and while in prison, and they had a lot of questions and such. And I'm sure that he probably obviously filled them in on what's going on while he was 14 years away from his home country. What's interesting is that this fella, the YouTuber, was talking about and rehashing Viktor Bout's comments about the United States of America, that it's lost its values, once Christian values. I disagree with that. No, the United States of America never had Christian values. The United States of America, the founding fathers were deists. There were deists and Freemasons. Many of them. You look at Thomas Jefferson, just look at what the stuff that they were saying. Benjamin Franklin, people like that, Thomas Paine, and especially Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson is that he didn't even believe in any of the supernatural aspects of the Bible, which would be the virgin birth, the flood, a literal global flood, the virgin birth, a literal lake of fire, things of that matter, 6-day creation. He denied the supernatural claims of Scripture, and this is a lot of people ever since the postmodern era, which was introduced right around the time of Charles Darwin with his anti-scientific book on evolution, The Origin of Man. That's what it is, or Origin of Species. I think that's what it's called, Origin of Species. Ever since postmodernism was introduced and it was getting away from the modernism, the belief in a higher power, belief in a deity, and with the Middle Ages, medieval times, things like that. And even though that was corrupt times as well, the Dark Ages with the Roman Catholic Church had the Bibles written in Latin and kept the common man in ignorance, in perpetual state of ignorance, which is why the Protestant Reformation was such a big deal. But I don't want to get too far so let's go back. So Viktor Bout was saying America's lost its Christian principles, Christian values. The YouTuber makes mention that families are being broken up, and I know this. I've experienced this firsthand. But as well as that, the family courts, the anti-family courts, lean grossly, so heavily in favor of the mothers, that it's some 83 to 17%, 83% to 17%, which is a 5-to-1 ratio of the mothers being named the custodial parent versus fathers. It's in the divorce courts, the courts highly favor women. Men are the breadwinners, oftentimes, majority of the time, the breadwinners, because hypergamy, women marry up. So, with all of this stated, they, as well as the family courts, just look at and also he made mention of the indoctrination of the school systems. The school systems are just overly, heavily corrupt. I mean, in the last 14 years, 15 years that he was in prison, I imagine there's a lot has changed, and there's a lot in this country that he's disgusted at. If not, he was as disgusted at this country, at Americans 15 years ago. There's so much more to be disgusted at with Satanism in schools. Look at Detroit. They erected a statue of Baphomet. Freemasonry is just exhibited all over the country. I remember looking at portraits of the checkerboard floor on Dallas International Airport, and there's another airport, I believe. I think there's one in Vegas. I'm not sure, but there's another one, Dallas, and somewhere else, another big city. And it's just, and of course, the consumerism in America, the self-centeredness. Everybody's just so damn selfish, so cutthroat, and then just the massive uptick in crime. Many people, many men in the manosphere, and conservatives as well, they often point out that people want to be mad at the lynching, obviously, and yeah, I understand for definite. I want to keep citing lynching as the most horrible time in America or so, and the amount of lynching deaths. I think it was some 1,360 years versus any given year, 6 months to a year in this country. And you look at the number of shooting deaths, gang violence, domestic terrorism in this country, and it far outweighs just 6 months of body of work, per se, 6 month body of work versus I think it was like 40 years or 60 years of lynching going on during the times of segregation and all of that. Segregation and Jim Crow. So people, and then also he made mention of the media, that the YouTuber made mention of the media, that they just sweep certain things under the rug. They're like, oh, we're not going to look at that. We're not going to talk about that. And that's exactly what happens. And it's just quite sad, as well as another video I uploaded about the extreme bias in the media. The YouTuber, he blames Democrats. He blames politicians, Democrats in particular. Yes, they are so corrupt in their stance, the Democrats, and I don't like them at all. However, though, I don't just stop there, because it all begins with the families. It all begins with the families, with, again, the lack of fathers in the homes, with the families are breaking down, the destruction of the nuclear family. You look at the original headline or so of Black Lives Matter movement, and they said our goal is to destroy the nuclear family and to promote homosexuality, things like that. And that's what's going on. That's what's going on since about the 60s. Since about the 1960s. Slowly but surely, the destruction of the nuclear family, and people just don't seem to care too much. Christians, I don't see you guys standing on the street corners and protesting at these anti-family courts, which you should be. Not just at, like, say, at these Planned Parenthood abortion human meals, like, yeah, puppy meals. These are human meals. Protesting at these human meals, and there are some scarce amount protesting at these at the schools and trying to get so that the children aren't indoctrinated so heavily by these woke women in the schools, which majority of teachers, overwhelming majority of teachers are women. But also protesting at these anti-family courts. I don't see that happening. Not at all. So there's this YouTuber. I don't know his spiritual beliefs. I don't know if he professes belief in Yahuwah or not. but it's really interesting hearing this perspective. And I'll go ahead and tag that in the bottom of the description box, so you can comment on that video once you see it. Comment, also leave a comment on my thoughts as well, and recapping the Viktor Bout's interview. He said there's so much. America has become a disgrace. America was once the example country, in his words. The example. It's not anymore. And like, as I mentioned on social media, is that the Biden administration is gave every American citizen a big middle finger. And that, yeah, we see these. We're not going to trade this service member, former Marine, who has a sketchy past. I know he had a dishonorable discharge. I may mention that in another video. For a basketball player, because this basketball player, the media won't cover it. Of course, the administration won't be honest about it. She checks all the right boxes, and so we're just going to versus this man, service member, white man. He's been in there longer, and he's older, much older, far older, and his health is deteriorating. They're just gonna leave him in there. So there's a lot to rehash, a lot to recap, and a lot to mull over from that interview. But let me know your thoughts though. Am I crazy for actually agreeing with him on that wise? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time.